I forgot to mention it during filming, so I'm adding this right to the beginning of the video. I would like to mention that setting up the correct time zone in OpenMediaVault seems to have fixed the unending blue loading screen issue I mentioned in the previous episode. Hello and welcome to episode 12, and in this episode I will be installing Image via Portainer in a way that it stores all of my photos and videos, my photo video library, directly on my NAS instead of my NVMe. And I will be doing it via NFS. I'm using NFS instead of Samba because both of my VMs are Linux, so it doesn't make sense to use Samba in this case. Now the image installation is kind of a secondary goal. To be more precise, Image is gonna be my guinea pig to test my NFS share, whether the permissions, access control list, and etc. file reading and writing is in order, and I do not have any issues with my containers writing directly to my NAS VM. Now the topics I'm going to be covering are creating a service user account on both VMs for my Docker containers, for them to be able to write directly onto the NAS. And then I'm going to create a shared directory for the NFS share. I'll talk about managing its permissions, ownership, and access control lists. And I will also touch the root squash, anonymous user ID, and anonymous group ID issues. I will talk about them more when I come to it. Next, I'm gonna enable and create the NFS share. Then I will mount the share on my Nix VM, which hosts my Docker containers. And I will make that mount permanent so it persists upon reboots. Lastly, I will create image stack with Portainer and instruct it to use the NFS share for photo and video storage while the database will still be written to NVMe. Now let's go ahead and start. So in one of the previous episodes, I created an MHJ user for myself, and I am treating this user as my main admin user. So I have given it permissions to SSH, so I can SSH into the machine with it instead of root. I have also given myself sudo permissions, again, to use this user instead of root. I have also given it OpenMediaVault admin permission, so I can manage the OpenMediaVault from its web GUI without any issues. Now I have also already set up NFS and NFS share and installed Image for myself behind the camera. And I will be replicating my steps to create an Image instance for my wife and to show you in general how I did it so you can follow along and do it for yourself as well. Now, let's go ahead and create a service user, and let's call it svc-nix- let's go with temp. You can name it whatever you want, but use a descriptive name so that you can understand what the purpose of this user and group will be. Instead of creating multiple users and groups for each and different individual Docker services and containers, I'm creating just one user, and the purpose of this user and group is to allow Docker containers to write data onto my NAS NFS shares and nothing else. All right, so the name for me currently is svc-nix-temp. You can do whatever you want. For shell, I'm going to use no login. I don't intend to log in as this user. I don't intend to use shell with this user. Nothing probably going to be executed with it. So user has been no login, perfectly fine. Groups, I'm not going to select anything because I will be creating a new group for myself. Let's hit save. As you can see, by default, OpenMediaVault adds a new user to users group. Let's apply so the changes take effect. And this users group is pretty generic. Any new user created will be added to this users group. So I will not be using the users group for anything in terms of permissions and ownership because it's very broad, right? Instead, I'm going to go ahead and create a new group with the same name for myself. Let's go to groups, create. Same name, group members, let's go with the same user. Hit save. Perfect. Now I can go ahead into the terminal of the VM and let's check the user that has been created and what user ID was given to this user. So we see svc-nix temporary with the user ID of 2001 and the group ID of 100, which is the users group created by OpenMediaVault. Now my user ID is 2001 because prior to that I created and then edited the UID of this SVC Nix Docker user. If I didn't have this, it was gonna be 1001 because Debian just increments by 1 every user ID. Now I need to create the same group and the same user on my Docker VM as well. And as far as NFS is concerned, NFS does not care about the username, right? The most important thing for NFS, for permissions and ownership to be maintained and for you to have read-write access, what you need is to have a user with the same user ID and group ID on both machines. So NFS will not care about your username, but it will care about the user ID. To that end, you need to make sure that both of your VMs have the same user ID and group for the same user, right? And in my case, if I go ahead and let's take a look at my Docker VM as well, let's see what users I have. etc, passwd. You will see that my last one is again 2000. If I create the same user here as well, that one will get also 2001, right? But that might be different for you because you might have had created different users in each of the VMs, and then the user ID and group IDs are not going to be consistent with each other by default, right? So what you can do, and what I did previously and what I'm gonna do now, is modify the user ID and group ID for the user and group that I just created. And I can do that with sudo user mod -u, the new user ID I want to use, 3000, and then the name of my user. Okay, let's cut the etc password again and see, yep, we see the new user ID. Let's look at the group ID. It's gonna be 2001 at the moment, but let's just in case check it. Right, yeah, it's 2001. So let's update it to 3000 as well. Sudo group mod -g, then the new group ID, GID, and then the name. And if we do get end group again, 3000, perfect. Now I can go ahead to my Nix VM, which is my Docker VM, and create these users, but directly tell it what GID and UID to use. So to that end, I will do sudo group add -g 3000, then the name of my group, enter, and then I'm gonna do sudo user add -user -u for the user ID 3000, and then -g 3000 to assign it to this group immediately, and then -m -s /user has been no login, and then the name of the user. Okay, let's do cut etc password, cancel 3000, and just let's do get an ent group as well. Okay, group is also 3000, perfect. Now we have users created in both VMs and they share the same UID. We can go back to OpenMediaVault and we can create a shared folder for the NAS share to use, right? So we go to storage, shared folders, let's hit plus, and let's name this shared folder image, library, and wife. For the file system, I'm going to use my SDB. Read-write permissions, I'm going to leave it as is for now. I'm not going to touch it. All right, let's hit apply. And now let's go into access control list. I will come back to it to show you different edge cases and to specifically talk about access control list and root squash. But for now, let's give the ownership for this directory to my user that we created, SVC Nix temporary, and for group as well, SVC Nix temporary. So both the user and the group has read, write, execute permissions, and others I'm gonna hit none. So nobody else can write or read anything from this shared directory, and only this user can, and group, members of this group can read and write files in there. I'm not gonna touch file access control list yet, and we will come back to it when we are testing different cases. Let's hit just recursive just in case and hit save. Perfect. Shared folder created. It is not used, so not referenced. Let's go to services and NFS. If you go to settings and you just hit enable, it's gonna pretty much enable it. And I use the default whatever was here. And now we need to create a share for the NFS, right? So for that, we're gonna choose the shared folder we just created, image library wife, and client. In the client section, you're just essentially telling which hosts can access this NFS share. You can go with CIDR notation and probably with comma separation, like, yeah, you can go to manual page and see how you can list different hosts. But in my case, it's just going to be my Docker VM. So 192.168.1.101. And permission, I'm going to go with read and write. And extra options, again, I'm not going to do anything here, but we'll come back to it and talk about root squash, anon UID and anon GID later on. Let's hit save. Let's go edit this and add an image tag. Let's apply first, yes. Okay, perfect. Let's save again, and it will probably tell me to apply the changes again. Maybe yes, maybe no. Yep. I need to apply something here, or it has already been applied. Okay, now we see in the shared folders that it is referenced, so NFS is using it at the moment. Right. Now we can go ahead and mount this NFS share on to the Docker VM, Nix VM. For that, let me go to Nix VM, clear the page, and clear the page here as well. And in the Docker VM, I'm gonna copy and paste part of the command. You can pause the video if you want and then take a look at it. But now I need to specify my NAS share IP address, 192.168.1.102, and then the share itself. So we go slash image underscore library underscore wife. And this is the NAS share, not the shared folder, not the path to full path to the shared folder, but the path of the NFS share itself, right? And I instructed where to mount it. Let's do mnt. It will probably fail because I have not created this directory, image library wife. Okay, mount point does not exist. And if you have other issues, error messages when you try to mount something apart from this, you will probably need to sudo apt update and then sudo apt install NFS commons. I have already done this, so it is pretty much installed for me, but you will need to install NFS commons. Oh, was it sudo apt install NFS common, not commons, common. Okay, perfect. All right, let's go back and create the mount directory, mmt, and let's do mk directory, image underscore library underscore wife. Cannot create, permission denied, perfect, sudo. It is created, and then we can go back, copy and paste the same command. Actually, I'm just gonna hit arrow key up. All right, you can pause and take a look at the command. Nice, it has been created. And as you can see, immediately I see that despite previously saying root, now that the share is mounted, this directory immediately shows the ownership and group as svcnix temporary. If you were to create a user with different username but the same 3000 UID and GID, you would see a different username, but the UIDs and GIDs would be the same, right? Can I go into this directory? I should not be able to. Permission denied, right? Let's do sudo su, become root, and then try to go into this directory. Permission denied. Now, despite the fact that both machines have root user, which shares UID 0 and GID 0, root is treated a bit differently. While other regular users are directly kind of like related to each other via the UID and GID, when it comes to root and NFS, root is not translated to each other between different machines, right? So now what we can do is I can exit. I can go back to the shared folder. Where is it? Shared folder. Let's edit this. Wait, no, not edit. Let's go to access control list. Now the primary ownership and permissions are managed by owner and group, but you can give individual specific users permissions if you want to, apart from like ownership and group via the file access control list, right? So if I enable read and write for my MHA user on this OpenMediaVault, which has UID of 1000, right? Let's save it. Do I need to apply it? Nope. Let's go back to it. LSL, let's cd image library live. I should be able to enter it. Yes. And I can touch a file here as well. If we do ls-l, you will see that my username is MHA and the group is svcnix temp. Now, the reason why I was able to create it and the name here is also MHA is because both of my machines have user named MHA and both of them have the user ID of 1000. If the UIDs were different, but I still had it, I would see different name and I still would be able to write here. But if I didn't have the user in my Docker VM with the 1000 ID, then I would not be able to enter or do anything with it. Okay, let's remove the test file that we created. Let's go back and remove this permission from my MHA user and hit save. Now, some of the Docker containers, not all of them, give you the ability to tell the service what user ID and GID to use inside the container, right? Image allows it. So with image's Docker compose file, I can tell it to use the user 3000, and it will be able to read and write anything into this directory without issues. But probably most of containers, most of services don't allow you to specify a user, and instead will use root, which will default to user ID and group ID of 0. In which case, as we saw previously, I would not be able to write or read anything into this directory, right? Because we cannot change the user ID and group ID in the Docker container, we will have to somehow allow root users to still be able to write into this network share, right? It's not a problem, again, with image, but with other containers, other services, it can be a problem. So to that end, what you need to do is you need to go back to your share itself, hit edit, and you need to enable root squash and then provide anonymous ID and GID. So what root squash does, it maps requests from user ID 0 and GID 0 to an anonymous UID and GID, which is by default, export FS chooses the UID and GID of 65,534, right? But with the parameters of anonid and anongid, we can instruct it to replace 0 with 3000. Okay, let's just copy it and go back to Sharon, and we just comma, Control V, and then anon UID equals 3000, anon GID, anonymous group ID 3000. Let's hit save. Apply changes. Yes. You can, by the way, like add them, remove them whenever you want, if you need to. So let's go back to my Nix VM, my Docker VM. So if I want to cd into image library vive now, I should not be able to because we removed the access to this user. But if I do sudo su and I again try to like go into this directory, I can do that. And if I touch a file and then ls-l, you will see that the test file, let's do ls-l so we don't see other stuff. The test file was created as the user svc nix temporary and svc nix temporary user and group, right? So now your containers that are using root user will be able to read and write from this NFS share. Perfect. Now let's make this mount permanent, because if I reboot now, this NFS share will not be mounted. At least should not be mounted. I'm not sure about that, but just to make sure that it is always mounted upon reboot, let's go into let's exit the root user and do sudo nano /etc fs tab. And I have already done this for my previous NFS share. I'm just going to copy and paste. You can again, once more, just pause the video here and take a look at the line. But I'm going to add vive here and also vive here. Control X. And I can do mount -a to see if there are any issues. No issues at all. Perfect. So the mounting should now persist upon reboots. Hey, edit time me here. This video became very long with NFS alone, so I decided to split it into two and explain image in the next episode, which will become episode 13. Alright, this is my home lab journey so far. I hope you liked it, and I hope to see you in the next one.